Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. You can hear me? Okay. So nice to be back with you all. It's been a while since I've been on the Bhakti Center class. And today, although we're not going to go into it in great detail, it's a very special verses because it's Krishna fulfilling the desire, the arrangement of his devotee Narada Muni. So that's kind of if you look at it through that lens, it's really fascinating what's happening, right? Because you just studied about how how Krishna just said, okay, well, I got to do this because Narada Muni said so, basically. So we're studying 26 up to 29. I hope I got that right, because that's what I prepared for.
Yes, that's right. And today is also Srila Prabhupada's arrival in the US.
I'm going to try to weave that into the class.
Nice.
That's okay with y'all. Okay. So I'll just do the Sanskrit for the first verse. Ityantare Arjunayo Krishnas tu Yamayor Yayao Atman Nirvesha Matrena. Oh, here I could share my screen if that helps. Atman Nivesha Matrena Tiryag Gatam Uluk Kalam. And the translation is, having thus spoken, Krishna soon entered between the two Arjuna trees, and thus the big mortar to which he was bound turned crosswise and struck between them. By dragging behind him with great force the wooden mortar tied to his belly, the boy Krishna uprooted the two trees. By the great strength of the Supreme Person, the two trees with their trunks, leaves, branches trembled severely and fell to the ground with a great crash. Thereafter, in that very place where the two Arjuna trees had fallen, two great, perfect personalities who appeared like fire personified came out of the two trees. The effulgence of their beauty illuminating all directions. With bowed heads, they offered obeisances to Krishna, and with hands folded, they spoke the following words. O Lord Krishna, your opulent mysticism is inconceivable. You are the supreme, original person, the cause of all causes, immediate and remote. And you are beyond this material creation. Learned Brahmanas know, on the basis of the Vedic statement, Sarvam Kalya Idam Brahma, that you are everything, and that this cosmic manifestation in its gross and subtle aspects is your form. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The two demigods, Nakulvara and Manigriva, because of their continuing memory, could understand the supremacy of Krishna. And this is the key. How? Because they weren't like great sadhus, by the grace of Narada. Now they admitted, quote, that we should be delivered by the blessings of Narada Muni was all your plan, meaning capital Y there, so meaning Krishna. Therefore, you are the supreme mystic. Everything, past, present, and future, is known to you. Your plan was made so nicely that although we stayed here as twin Arjuna trees, you have appeared as a small boy to deliver us. This is all, and this word is used again, this is all your inconceivable arrangement. Because you are the Supreme Person, you can do everything. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpa Turubhyas Chakripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. You ever notice it doesn't always seem to us that Krishna is there for us? Has anyone ever had that experience? It's only me. due to our not being perfect devotees yet, that may happen, that we don't see that Krishna is there for us. And Nala Kuvera Manigriva, they might have thought that also. They had to wait a long time as trees. We heard in a few verses ago, 100 years of the demigods. I think, isn't like 6 months of the demigod, 6 months of our time is one day. So if anyone wants to do the calculation of how many Earth years that would be, 100 years of the demigods, it's a long time. But what's being said here is really important. Krishna had a plan. Nala Kuvera Mani, they're praying. They say, this is all your divine arrangement. Krishna had a plan for them. And the key point is that Krishna has a plan for all of us. We just need to get on board with the plan. Here in the program it says you can do everything. So Narada Muni and Manigriva and Nala Kuvera, there, in one sense, their situation is a little harder for us to apply in our lives. A lot of it was Kripa Siddhi. They became perfect by the blessings of Narada. And today being the day that Srila Prabhupada arrived in the US, Prabhupada's example is a great inspiration for us, because it's not like on the external level, everything was a cakewalk for Prabhupada, right? He struggled with his wife's interest in tea more than in Krishna consciousness. He wanted to set up the League of Devotees in Jhansi, and what was it? The governor's wife decided no, it should be used for some social function. The building should be used for some social function instead of that. And, he asked people, just give me one of your sons. I'll train them as a brahmachari. There was no interest. He made one person a disciple. He struggled to get out of India. You read in the Lilamrita how hard it was. It's not like, just buy a ticket and go, or even just get permission from Sumati Morarji and go. No, it was not easy to get out of India. What are some other, maybe you could either put in the chat or go off mute. What are some other struggles that Srila Prabhupada went through? The Juhu Temple, yes, and there's that beautiful book by His Holiness Giriraj Swami. Yeah, so much struggle. What else?
His health.
Two heart attacks. Yeah, his health. Yeah, someone said his health, and then Bhima Prabhu wrote 2 heart attacks on the Jaladuta. If I had a cold, I would say, okay, when's the next boat going back? What am I doing here? It's great. Let's speak of 2 heart attacks. Anything else? Business failure, Henry said. Lack of cooperation from his godbrothers. What's the question that Ananda Bihari asked? How do you know if things are not going my way as Krishna's plan? Or, well, that we'll get to. We'll give you a post-dated check on that. But that is a important question. So yes, Prabhupada went through so much. And this is a bit of an aside from the main thrust of this class, but I thought I'd mention it because it's something that I think about a lot, is we call it the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. But I think we have to be a bit cautious about using the word Leela in this sense, not in the sense that Prabhupada was totally dear to Krishna, but it could be written off, well, it's all Leela. But I think what really glorifies Prabhupada is that he actually had 2 heart attacks. It wasn't just like, and it didn't affect him at all. No, of course it affected him. His lack of success in the beginning in New York, that was trouble. In other words, he went through these trials and tribulations, and that was part of showing what a great devotee he is, that he went through all this and he persevered. Well, that's just a bit of an aside, but so how do we get to that kind of consciousness that Prabhupada had? Because life is not going to be what is that song by Lynn Anderson? I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden. That could be what you could say. That's what Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, "Anityam asukam loka." He says, "Dukalayam asashvatam." He repeatedly says, "It's dukalaya. It's a place of dukkha. It's a place of unhappiness. It's asukam. It's without happiness." So we're going to go through all kinds of stuff in our life. And how do we at least work towards seeing that Krishna has a plan for us, the kind of vision that Prabhupada had, and that beautiful prayer he wrote, Lord, make me dance as you like. How do we, get on board with Krishna's plan? So that's that, Prabhupada's arrival in the US is such an amazing example of the ideal, and we are not at the ideal, but we can gradually go towards the ideal. So I would like to talk about that a little bit. And the key is really looking in the mirror and questioning ourselves, where is my rest? Where is my shelter? Where do I find solace? And the key is to find that rest, that solace in the correct place. And it's not linked with external circumstances. Again, and probably, I had too hard, what's going on? That was an external circumstance, you could say, but he was always taking shelter with Krishna despite those external circumstances. So we may be a little mixed. We may find our, when the going gets tough, we check our bank balance. But if financial security may be one of our shelters, or our abilities, our intellect, maybe our strength, maybe our beauty, maybe our family, maybe ISKCON, etc. And these things, they're okay. But what is at the core of our heart? What is actually in the center? Where is our ultimate and present rest? And that has to be deeply in Krishna. It's an internal condition of the heart, because Krishna says there's going to be all kinds of, messes in our life. It has to be. It's just part of life. And the only way to not be shaken by all the circumstances, even the happy ones can shake us, is to have that deep shelter in Krishna. And when life does seem out of control, we may turn to Krishna, but we tend, at least I tend, to ask Krishna to change my externals. Could you like that? But rather, what's really happening is the need to change within, and to pray to Krishna, and through that prayer to, relinquish our illusory hold on the circumstances that are beyond our control, right? And those circumstances and that illusory control of them, we have to offer them to Krishna. And if we do that, the result is we feel internal peace regardless of the external circumstances. And therefore we have to be really, beware of that feeling in the heart of discontent. And that often comes by, throwing blame on the imperfections of the world and the imperfections of our external circumstances, because discontentment ultimately is an internal state, or we could say contentment is an internal state, which is external to the independent of the external circumstances. So when we feel that discontentment, that lack of connection, and that focus on the external circumstances, it's really great if we can try to see that as Krishna calling us closer to him. And, we tend to blame all that's out there and miss the point. I can't remember, I saw one of those cute sayings. What is it? We're stepping on the flowers and criticizing all the weeds or something like that, right? We miss the point. And Krishna is regularly giving us opportunities to do this and get the point. And, we could grade ourselves. Sometimes we really, I'm sure sometimes we really do get it. And we do and we take that shelter. And other times, we may not be batting 1,000%. And we don't have to beat ourselves up. I mean, in baseball, I don't know what it's like these days, but if you're batting 340 or 350, which mainly means like 1/3 of the time you get it right, you might be the most valuable player. I think one time somebody batted over 400, was Ted Williams or something like that. But it's not normal. So if we don't get it 100% of the time, we don't beat ourselves up, but we work towards the goal. And one of the keys is, and this is hard, is to abandon the notion that our circumstances must change. Only when this person who's giving me a hard time moves to another state, or whatever the circumstance is, that has to change. Only then I can really chant my rounds well. Then I can really take shelter of Krishna. The external circumstances, they're dictated by our karma and ultimately by Krishna, either his desire or at least his sanction. And I know this sounds a bit cliche, but our freedom is in how we respond and our attitude to the external, and that's our choice. And so, the challenge in difficult circumstances is to accept the process of bhakti and to take that shelter of Krishna. I have other things I want to say. I'm tempted to see if you have any questions or comments so far before I carry on. I wasn't looking at the chat, and now I am. And there's all kinds of stuff in there. It's a question. Srila Prabhupada's pastimes are happening of a pure devotee, but it is not a lila. Yeah, okay, you're releasing illusory control of the external circumstance. Oh, so you're all just saying these are notes, Prabhu. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments before we move on to the process? I was saying that to get into this right consciousness, we have to accept the process as we talk about. Yes, Adi Pushpu. You're on mute. You're definitely on mute.
Okay, there we go. Now it's open.
And now we just hear echo. Maybe
I don't think I can speak because just a second.
Unmute yourself, Adipusha Prabhu. Unmute.
I'm hitting it. There we go. When we say
We still have
turn the left knob all the way down. Hello?
Hare
Sorry
Krishna.
for the confusion there. When we say taking shelter of Krishna, our understanding is that we have the freedom to desire, to hear from the spiritual master about prescribed duty, Prabhupada Desh, the place indicated by the spiritual master where he wants us to serve. And if we have that focus, what will please my spiritual master? What is my spiritual master asking me to do? And we desire to please the spiritual master, and we try our best, then Krishna is pleased. And like you said, that's the external circumstances are irrelevant. Matra sparsha stu counting. The happiness and the stress will come, just like the winter and summer seasons, but one must tolerate them without being disturbed. And what is not disturbed? My service. And it may seem like a big success, or it may seem like a small thing, or may seem like no external result. But if I'm trying my best to do what the Guru asked me to do, then as far as I know, that's perfect, because Krishna is pleased by that.
That's great. And that's a great
You want to
segue
include Guru in the picture a little bit there. Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
thank you. Yeah, well, we see that in what we're reading today. It's the Guru Narada Muni who is
Now I can't hear anything. Oh my goodness.
Recording in progress.
making it all happen. You can hear me? Okay, so let's continue, because I had some more. So this taking shelter of the process, and as Adi Pushpu said, the essence of that, Ado Guru Pradashraya, in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says, Ado, in the beginning, take shelter. So this one of the ninefold processes is prayer. And when we pray to Krishna in difficult situations, we want to focus on Krishna, not so much on the problem. Does that make sense? And remember what Shastra says, and I always like this combination. A great meditation on Krishna, I think, is to meditate on his power, and that's mentioned in the purport today, and that of all of his qualities, the most important one is that he's Bhaktavatsal, that he loves his devotees, he cares for his devotees. It's quite a great combination, right? Because if someone's all powerful but not all loving, if he has a bad hair day, we're in trouble. And if someone is all loving but not all powerful, they must be really nice association, but they can't do that much for us. But if we meditate on Krishna's incredible power, his care for his devotees, and we turn our own problem at hand to him and declare our full surrender and dependence on him. And although we may feel sometimes cut off from Krishna's mercy, it's a proactive, willing trust that Krishna does care for us. And he has affection for us. So even in those difficult times, we have to kind of redirect our attention from the circumstances to dwelling on Krishna's words. Right? Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. You declare it boldly, Arjuna, my devotee will never perish. And that is where relief lies. If you think about the 7th chapter of the first canto of the Bhagavatam, in the Ashwatthama has thrown this Brahmastra at Arjuna. And, were it me in that situation, I would have just said, Krishna, help. But before asking Krishna to adjust his circumstances, Arjuna in verse 22, 23, 24, 25, he says these beautiful prayers glorifying Krishna. And then only at the end, after he focuses his mind on Krishna, oh, by the way, maybe you could help with this thing that's coming to kill me. So it's a really interesting example, even in that really difficult time, that Arjuna took the time to remember Krishna. In the 8th chapter, 7th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, mam anusmara yudyacha. He says, mam anusmara, remember me, Krishna says, and then do your duty. Mm-hmm. So so Arjuna is a great example. That acknowledgement and admission of our own incapacity and taking that to Krishna is really required. And this is, like I said, they say in Hindi, dire dire, dire dire. This is a slow, expanding discovery as we practice bhakti. It's not one and done. And generally we seem to only take shelter when every other alternative has been proven insufficient. So our training is to find that shelter regularly, because we're asked to trust Krishna, that we're not alone, we're not abandoned, we're not forgotten. And this kind of faith is intentional. It's something we have to work on. Mm-hmm. And when there's a difficult situation or a fearful situation, that faith can tend towards becoming weak. So the challenge is to be strong in that trust. And I like the saying that we walk by faith, not by sight, and because Krishna is often working and carrying things out beyond our view. I'm sure we've all had that experience, every one of us, in our life sometime, where we're saying, why is Krishna doing this to me? And then later we say, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. Right? I'm sure everyone on this call has had that. I don't know if there's a super quick one for me was that this is, when I got married, it was in the 80s. This kind was a little different then. So it was more like arranged marriages. So someone had arranged a marriage with me with this one devotee woman. And I don't know if she saw my big nose or whatever. Anyway, she changed her mind. And I was like, Krishna, nobody loves me. And then, of course, I met, I was introduced to Ananda Vrindavaneshwari, who's been my wife for 32 years and is an amazing devotee and great association, that. So then now I can go, that was Krishna's mercy, right? But at the time, I was like really self-pity and all this stuff. So Krishna's working beyond our vision often, and therefore we try to develop that trust, that faith. And timing has something to do with this also. As I mentioned, Nala Kubera Manigriva, 100 years. Does anyone calculate what 100 years of the demigods is in Earth years? No, I guess no one did that calculation. But anyway, they had to wait a long time. And generally, and this kind of goes to Ananda Vihari Prabhu's question in the beginning, generally the time is a factor in anxiety, right? Because we're thinking like, Krishna, this is just, send me a sign, right? And Krishna has a different watch than we do. And what seems like, oh my God, this is out of control. I can't take it anymore. I got to do something. Patience, utsaha, nishchaya, dharyat, enthusiasm, patience, and faith or confidence. Those are three very important factors in bhakti, because, time is a very interesting element. Ultimately, it's Krishna. So these are some kind of philosophical, on the practical level, deciding when to take an action, when to wait for, to be more in, let's see what Krishna wants from me, when to take decisive, there's usually some filters we can consider. The first one is our motive. What's behind my desire to take an action right now, to do something, or what motivates me to act, instead of waiting. And that takes some real brutal honesty. Is it just the desire to serve and pure, or is it more self-serving and avoiding something, or it's tainted by fear or envy or pride, and and then really entering into a mood of prayer. One thing that I've noticed, and I'm really bad at this, is prayer. It's one of the 9 angas of bhakti, and it takes some time sometimes. we think, okay, I said a prayer just like that beautiful prayer. Om, I don't know if Prabhupada said that prayer that we can chant to overcome material desires. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasingaya Namaste Tejasaya Vir Vir Bhava Brajanakam Brajanam Shra Kamarasayan Randaya Tamo Grasa Om Saha Abhayam Atmani Bhuista Om Shram. Maybe some of you know that. It's a beautiful, the English is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsingadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth, just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish my demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in my heart and drive away my ignorance, so that by your mercy I may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So we may say that, and we say, okay, I said my prayer to Lord Nrsingadev to give up material desires. Okay, what's for prasadam? But we should try an experiment. Enter into 20 minutes of prayer, a half hour of prayer, an hour of prayer. See what happens. It's incredibly powerful. In Vrindavan, I remember there was I've seen him do this often, but this one incident where some devotees from Iran they had come to Vrindavan, and they were struggling with impersonalism and understanding that God is a person. So Burijan Prabhu told them, go stand in front of Krishna and Balaram and don't leave until you get the answer. And they did that. And I think they spent quite a long time. They came back to him and they said, it worked. And so, we have such busy lives, but really taking the time to hear Krishna's name, to hear the Bhagavatam, and to enter into some real prayer. And thank you, Andrea, for putting that. Yeah, 5:18:8. That's right. And Prabhupada mentions, I think, in the purport, this is a devotees can pray like this to give up material desires. Prayer can be really, really powerful, and Krishna reciprocates with us when we enter into that mood of dependence and connection. I was just looking at this book that I read often, the Living Name by Satchidananda Swami, and I was just looking at it. I asked him to write a little something in the book, and I just read this again today. He said the essence of this book is to establish the connection by chanting with awareness. By chanting with awareness. He says the goal is that in one sense, or the reason he wrote this is that devotees connect with Krishna through his holy name. So feeling that connection can really be bring our devotional life alive. He talks there about the three kind of hearts: the one that pumps blood, the one that's full of emotions, and then the spiritual heart. And he said often our spiritual heart is almost dormant, and reawakening it by the ninefold process of bhakti is so powerful. So, comments, questions?
Thank you, Vraj Vihari Prabhu. We'll have to re-watch your class. It's just packed with wisdom. Thank you so much. Temple room, do we have comments or questions? Okay, Adipusha Prabhu is raising his hand. But make sure there's no Akashvani, please, Adipusha Prabhu. I can't hear you. We cannot hear you. We can only see your bright
Here's a
face.
question while we're waiting. Here's a question from Kartik. Is this material really all dukkha and no sukha? Or is it just the way we perceive it? Surely some people in this material would have it better than others, at least some of the time.
Can't hear it.
So
We're taking a question from Kartik, okay? You're next. You were muted, so we took a question from Kartik.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So I'm just answering Kartik Prabhu's question. No, it's not. There is in other places, Krishna will say Sukha Dukkha Same Kritva in the Bhagavad Gita, that yes, there's happiness and there's distress. But it depends on how you define the terms, right? Because spiritual happiness is not the material happiness. And ultimately, everything ends in, when you think about it, Kartik, yes, there's some happiness. Sometimes your favorite sports team wins, or sometimes you find $100 on the street, or sometimes you get a really whatever. There's you have a nice talk with a friend. Yeah, there's happiness. But when you think about, as a saying in America, right? The only thing you're sure of is death and taxes. So the only thing we're sure of, and that's what's kind of scary, is disease. You're sure to get sick sometimes. You're sure to get old. I mean, I still in my mind think I'm 19. I'm not. I'm not even close to that, but in my mind, I still think I am. And we're sure to die. So the scary thing is that the inevitability is of the dukkha, and the sukha is maybe some is there due to our karma. There will be some sukha, but that's all temporary. And that Krishna says in the Gita as well. I'm trying to remember. Adi antavata kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. It has a beginning and an end. So yeah, I know sometimes especially in the earlier days of ISKCON, people just give it's all suffering in this material world, and when devotees are kind of like, but I had it wasn't all, so yes, there's some sukha, but the ultimate end is dukkha in this world, and both the sukha and dukkha of this world is pale compared to the let's not use happiness, but let's use satisfaction that we experience in our spiritual practices. Bhima Prabhu.
Haribo Prabhu, what a wonderful class, very pertinent to circumstances in all of our lives, especially for myself. I have a small horse rescue, and one thing that it's funny that you should have addressed this, and I'll try to make this quick, that in remembering what this one little pony that came to us had gone through, I was driven to a great sadness, and we come to understand that we might be happy, but there is so much suffering going on around us, and it reminded me of why a guru or why Prabhupada is so grave. And it's not that Krishna consciousness is such a serious, heavy issue, but that he's recognizing the suffering that we may be happy, we may be in happy circumstances, but there's suffering going on somewhere. There's loneliness going on somewhere. There's neglect going on somewhere, and no man is an island. And the guru feels that, and Krishna feels that. So we should always be in touch with the fact that though we may be happy, somewhere very close to you, someone may need some happidness. Hare Krishna.
It's kind of like, I forget which book it's in, but one of Sherlock Holmes's books. And what was the name of his sidekick? Watson. They were taking a train through the countryside, and Watson, it's so beautiful here. It's so beautiful here. And Sherlock Holmes said, so much suffering. It's just that you cannot hear the cries of the people being mistreated in the houses because their neighbors are so far away. So yes, especially if you're living in New York, a 1 mile radius, there's somebody there dealing with cancer. There's domestic violence. There's all kinds of crap going on in the world. And we are so fortunate, as Bhima Prabhu is pointing out, to have the opportunity to practice bhakti.
There's a question from Andrea.
Also reminded me, Bhima, just one other point I'll make. A devotee, she used to work as a veterinarian at Cornell University. And she said it would be, I would ruin your day, week, and month if I told you all the things that I saw about how animals were mistreated. And she even said that the dairy industry is more demoniac than the meat industry in the way they treat mother cow. And I was like, wow. Hare Krishna. So anyway, other questions, comments, thoughts?
There's a question from Andrea Prabhu. How do you not get depressed by this awareness of others' suffering?
That's a wonderful question. And I want to give it a real answer rather than just like, well, answering it personally, I dwell on trying to give, according to my capacity, my small capacity, as Bhima, I think he used that same term, try to help people out of that suffering by giving them a chance to hear transcendental knowledge, take prasadam, give them some hope, and to try to develop, and it's not easy for me, but try to develop compassion instead of depression, compassion. And also in the years of my trying to practice Krishna consciousness, compassion for myself. So to also take out the time to charge my spiritual, like I'm going to Govardhan in a few days. I just need a break from America and absorb myself in getting Giriraj's association and try to chant Hare Krishna and read. I'm going to try to pretty much go off the grid completely, not answer any emails or anything, and just do that. So that's also part of compassion, seeing how I'm suffering. So I need to take care of myself. So yeah, compassion instead of depression. I hope that's helpful, Andrea. Because that was Prabhupada's reaction, right? Prabhupada's reaction was, okay, there's so much suffering in the world, I'm getting on the Jaladuta. Yeah.
Get on the Jaladuta, Andrea.
We all got to get in. We all have to get on our Jaladuta to our capacity, in our ways. And of course, Prabhupada also, going to that self-care, what was it? The first book was in the Lilamrita was a lifetime of preparation. So we don't have to wait till we're 70 to get on the Jaladuta, but we can follow Prabhupada's example that he also really worked on his own, spirituality. Of course, Nitya Siddhas don't really have, but as an example, he did that. I remember reading about that person who lived next to him, I think in Allahabad, and just said that his house was just full of books everywhere. He was studying like anything. I think our time is up. Is that right, Prabhu?
Yeah, 1 minute. What's the percentage between Krishna working in our life, karma working in our life, and our misused free will playing out in our life? What's the percentage?
Oh, great. In 1 minute, you want me to answer that question? You got like 10 hours. Krish, one way to, just 1 second, I just want to make sure, there we go. One way to look at it, Krishna uses our karma often as devotees and to teach us and to, like that. And we know the story of the fan. You unplug the fan still goes around for some time. So it can get really intellectual and mental, but I think the best thing is to follow what Prabhupada said. It should be the guide of all devotees. There's only one verse that I've ever heard Prabhupada say should be the guide of all devotees.
I know it. Atyenu kampam susamikshmanu, right?
Oh, you stole my thunder. Yes, yes. And you can read about it also in the 10th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion under Expecting the Lord's Mercy. And Prabhupada there talks about, that's where he says, Canto 10, chapter 14, verse 8. And he says that this verse should be the guide of all devotees. And that is that whatever has happened to me is Krishna's mercy, and let me offer with my heart, my words, my actions, everything, my obeisances and gratitude to him. And if you do that, then you automatically go back to Godhead. Jiveti yomukti pade sadayabak. It's a sure, it's done. Forget about it. It's done. Okay. So Vancha kalpa turubhyascha kripasanga bhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
That was a blast, Prabhu. Perfect. Great class. Thank you very much.
Hare
Shrimad
Krishna.
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vraj Vihari Prabhu Ki Jai. Self-care and care for others Ki Jai. We may find a wallet, but at the same time, there may be a pony being mistreated somewhere. Let's get on Jaladuta and give Srimad Bhagavatam to others. All right. Thank you very much. Adipusha Prabhu, are you showing us darshan or are you cutting us out? You are cutting us out. All right. Anyways, it was great seeing you all, dear devotees. Bhima Prabhu, Henry Prabhu, Rich from Central Maine, Andrea. Anyone else daring to turn the cameras on? I can show you darshan of our little deities here. Jagannath.
Hold on, let me spotlight it. Wait. Oh, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. And this is Gaurangi's side. See this, a friend of Gaurangi made this deity for her. Now we're worshiping him. This is Srila Prabhupada. All right. Okay.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much, Ananda Vihari Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Hare Krishna. Hugging you all. Hari Bol.